In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create a hover effect on the X scale. As you can see here, as I hover over with my mouse cursor, it becomes a pointer instead of a default cursor. And not only that, you can see here in the console log, as we hover over it, it shows you exactly on which array value we are hovering on top of. So let's start to explore how we can do this. In this video, we're going to focus on one of the viewers' questions, which is how to change the cursor on hover on the X scale in Chart.js. And this question came from one of my other videos, which was about how to change the mouse cursor on hover on the legend. Then if you scroll down here, you can see the question came from Chen Hao Hu. So a special thank you to Chen for asking the question. Here he asked specifically, can you demonstrate how to make the X or Y labels have on-hover effect and clickable? So this is very important. I created a video eventually that was able to create a clickable X scale with links. So that is one part. And this one here will basically continue on with the hover, but because it's so complicated, I will put it separately in a very basic item. So after this, I would highly recommend you to watch this one so you can combine them together with clickable links with a hover effect. So let's start with this, and what we're going to do here is first of all go to chartjs3.com, getting started. This specific link here, it will give us the default code. And you might notice this, for some reason Google Chrome gives me this error. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to copy all of this code here. Once we copy this code, we go back here to our page here, and then what I want to do now is just want to move the title here. Save this, refresh, there we are. So now we have our basic bar chart. So what we want to do next is basically start working on the hover effect. So to do the hover effect, we must break down a certain item. So to explain you what we're going to do here basically is this. When we hover over the canvas, it should recognize that, and it should also recognize the coordinates. And basically, I'm not even talking about hovering only, because hover means if you're on the canvas, no matter where, that's it. But what we really want to do here is the mouse move. And the mouse move effect basically triggers every time we move the mouse anywhere on here. And you will see that later on. This is very important because I tend to always use the hover effect, but the hover effect means hovering on anything here would mean it's same effect. It's equal to same. So we need to do here a mouse move so it will get the coordinates exactly. And what we really need here now is the coordinates of this label here, label here, label here. So that when we hover over it, it will understand we need to trigger then a cursor adjustment, or basically a pointer. The cursor becomes a pointer, or else it will go back to default value. So to do this, first thing what we need to do here is to make sure that we have this dependent. So what we're going to say here is I'm going to put in here a constant ctx, and then we say your document.get element by ID my chart. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to pinpoint this specific canvas. And if I do only my chart, it will not only get the canvas, but it will start to draw everything here. And I don't want that because that will confuse the code. So what we need to do here is we have to split them up. So we say if we are now on mouse move on here, it should trigger eventually something. So now we have that one done. What we need to do now is really start from the very beginning. And what we're going to do is basically this. We're going to create a function here, and this function I will call it the pointer scale, or pointer scales. And this one, well, we can say your canvas, and we say comma hover or mouse move. However, here this is just a parameter, so it doesn't matter. Because most people will say this is a hover effect, or we say hover. In reality, it's a mouse move. So, but this here is not any value. This is just a parameter referring to something else. So, to do that, what I need to do now is first create a CTX, which means basically this one here. So the moment we're on a CTX, we want to create a add event listener, which listener, sorry, that's the right term. And what we want to do here is we want to trigger this event every single time we do a mouse move. And I guess maybe it's even better just to keep this mouse move to avoid the confusion. And then we say a comma, this will be registered as an event. Once we did this, we're going to create here as a quick function. So this is a function, what is it? A function arrow expression. And in here, we will say what are we going to do here. At that very moment, we want to trigger this specific function. And then in this function, I want to move the values in here. So what are the values? So these are the parameters here. So here we have the arguments, which is ctx. So that's why canvas is basically this one here. So this is here, moving in there, and comma, this one would be the E for the event. Alright, so the event in this case is our mouse move. That's being registered. So this mouse move is here. So that's why we have this here. Alright, so once we have this here, now if we save this, right now it does nothing, but it should, oh, I guess still not yet, malform our function parameter in 102. Fair enough, let's look what's going on here. 102, and alright. So the issue here is the following. The arrow should be in here, and this here most likely should be like that. Very important here. And well, I think we even missed one, and the reason why we missed one is we need to put these together. Am I correct? Or am I mistaken? Apparently we don't need, so we can do it like this. Save this, refresh, there we are. Alright, so let's test this if this works. So if we do this, all I want to do now is a console log mouse move. Well, I guess mouse move, we can just grab this. If I save this here, you can see here, every time we move, you can see here all these pixels. These are the pixel coordinates, the y and the x, and that's how it's calculated. So this is the first thing we did. So now we're able to track the event, and what we want to do here is basically event. This part should be triggered. Everything here above, I don't want to trigger. And the reason why we need to do it really through the Canvas API and not within chartJS, for one reason. chartJS created the chartArea, and the chartArea only allowed to trigger within these 4 lines here. So this was a big issue, that if you are hovering on here, it does not work. It doesn't trigger, same as here. So that will be of course another video where I explain how to do that one. But anyway, very important. So this is the reason why this was so complicated. And now what we're going to do is, so now we're going to start, and basically we're doing just everything in the Canvas API itself, creating a custom function. So what we're going to do here is now the following. I need to get the so-called coordinates. And the coordinates not only from our mouse, that we already get here, but we also need the coordinates of this. And then later on, we still need to clean up the coordinates, because you can see here, there's a certain calculation being done here, because right now the mouse move event is based on the entire screen, which is fine, but not what we need, because we cannot get then the exact coordinates here. Why? Because this is the exact coordinates of the canvas. If I click on this, you will see here, look at the tooltip at the very top next to my chart. Then you see here, next to the blue text, you will see 693. That means the width is almost 700 pixels, and height would be 350, or almost 350. And these are the exact coordinates. And we have here far beyond other coordinates. You can see here the y and the x has far different numbers here, and it doesn't make sense. And the reason why is simply this: we only have 350 plus pixels here in height, and not 600 something. And the reason why it's having this, because it just calculates from top to bottom the entire screen. But I don't want it. I want the canvas here. So we need to clean that up as well. So why don't we just clean that up first? I guess that would make the most sense. So to do this, what we need to do here, we're going to say here let, then we say here reset the coordinates, and what we're going to do here is we're going to grab here the canvas, which is basically this. We want to reset it because we want to grab now the official coordinates. To do that, we're going to say here get bounding client rectangle, and that's basically the rectangle here. As you can see here, as we hover over it, you can see this is the square, the canvas, basically the rectangle canvas here. We want only the information from here. Everything outside is for us not necessary, because we cannot calculate position based on whatever is in here. That makes sense. So that's what we're going to do right now. So we have this here, and you might say, okay, what does this really mean? Let me show you this. Let's console log this, save this here, refresh. Alright, what happened here? Unexpected identifier unnumbered 100. We have this. In the canvas, let me check, get bounding client rectangle. And oh, sorry, that's here, number 100. So we have the function here. What's going on? Ah, of course, sorry. This is, of course, not what we want. Later on, we need to do this one. I guess I'm going ahead of myself. Sorry about that. So now we can go here, console log. And let me just remove the mouse move. Refresh. Now you can see here, we get here the exact coordinates here, which is the width and the height, which is the exact one. And we also get here the other exact coordinates. However, what I want to do now is basically deduct one from the other. You can see here bottom is 537, which doesn't make sense because the height of the item is 346. So what we need to do here is we need to recalculate this, and the difference between that will eventually be correct. So that's what we're going to do now. So we have this, so we need to get our reset coordinates. So eventually this corner here at the very top will be 0, 0 when we hover over it, or when we mouse move it. Very important to remember this. So then we say here the following. We're going to say here constant x equals, and then we say here the mouse move. That is basically this item here. So when we have this effect, wherever we are located at that specific point in the mouse move, we will say your client x minus reset coordinates dot left. So let's look here at the reset coordinates left. That is this one. That is 23. So apparently there should be here approximately 23 pixels, as you can see here. I know that this padding is 20 pixels, and then we have this border is about 3 pixels. So the left side going here, that is minus 23. Then we get the exact position here. So that is number one. And then of course, client, this should be correctly spelled. And then we have the other one here. And we can also do the same here for the y value. Mouse move y. And then here, now we don't say any more left, but we say the top. So the top is basically from here to here, which is correct because we need to calculate. If you want to calculate this 0, 0, we need to go how many to the left? About 23 pixels. Or let me just remove this inspector element. 23 pixels to the left, and then we go down X amount. How much that is? Well, probably here. Do we see that here? Height. I'm not sure if this is the correct one or the Y. Am I correct? What is that? Client mouse move minus reset. This should be top. So what is the top? Top equals this. Alright. So this would mean that this is about 191 pixels here. So it goes here to the left with 23 pixels and then goes down 191 pixels. So once we get this here, and if you want to really understand, you can do a console log on the mouse move client X. You can see here 200 pixels, and you can see here the exact amount of pixels here. Then we are here, this is about 500. Doesn't make sense, this is only 350 pixels. So that's why. So once we have this and you understand now these differences, what if we say here now the X and the Y value, you will probably understand immediately that we get now the exact coordinates. So if I save this, I'm going to remove this console log here, save that again, go back here. And now you can see here we get the coordinates, and here at the very top, we should be almost at 1. And you can see here, if I go back here, alright. So look what it is, it's about 0 to minus 0.5, or I just saw somewhere with minus 1.0. So about 1 or 2 pixels off. For me in that case, I will accept this because that would be a tiny difference compared to what we previously had. So that tiny error margin is acceptable for me. So we can work on now and start continue on with the next item. So what we want to do now is, well, there was this part I want to show, is now to figure out the positioning. What we need to do is to figure out the exact position of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. All those legends here. Because if we are on there at that very moment, we want to say, trigger the pointer effect. So how do we get this? Well, we can find the information. Luckily here, well, let me just console log or remove this first. And here we say the following. We're going to go here, and then what we're going to say here is we go into my scale, which is basically this here, or my chart, and then we say dot scales, and then we can go here into dot x. And why dot x? We're focused on the x scale here, so the x-axis, and not on the y-axis. I will make a separate video for those. So this is very important. So if I do here console log, save this, and then here, all right. So then we get here all this information. You see here we get a lot of information, and what we really need here is basically the following. We need to know on the X scale, we need to know the, well, we have here the left value, which is very interesting because this left value here is based on chart area. So where is the chart area starting? So the chart area, and I have videos about it. If you're looking for understanding chart area, look at the arbitrary line video that I have. Very useful for that one. So the chart area is basically this. We have, that's these lines here. This is what we call the chart area. And that's what I was explaining, that if you hover out here, it doesn't work because it doesn't trigger that. However, the starting point is here at left, and that would mean this to here, if I look here, as you can see, this space here between the line and left, or basically the beginning of the canvas to the line, the left line, is 27 pixels plus plus. Meaning, this square here, well, basically at the left side, we must start here and not at 0. Because if we start at 0, you will click even on the white space here, and that would be a clickable link. So or that would trigger the hover effect. I don't want that. I only want here in this square here, or rectangle here below. Alright, so that makes sense. So we have the left one, and the left one says here, alright, this is the first one, because what we need is the coordinates of all of this here. So we have the left, I'm going to grab this one, and this is the first item we need. So the next one would be basically this. When we have that, what is the next one? Well, let's look at it. But luckily, we have another one, which would be here, the bottom. I'm going to look at the bottom, and the bottom is 350. So what is 350? Or 346. This one is always given because it's the very, very bottom of it. So what we want to do then here, we want to get the bottom. Well, guess what? The bottom here is this item here. So we're going to say dot bottom. So now we have two parts. The next one what we want is the top. We have to figure out the top, but the top is a bit more tricky. And the reason why the top is a bit more tricky is probably we need to figure out here the top, or is it, or I guess it's not tricky at all, sorry. It is already given here as well. So the top here is basically the starting point here at the very line here, which would be the bottom of the chart area, but the starting point of the scale. So we get this one, and we have as well the top. So, well, what we can do here now, I guess this would even make far more sense. Let's put it down here. Let's say coordinates. And then we have this one, we will say here, constant left equals left, and then when we have more, I guess we don't even have to put in any more these curly, these semicolons. Apparently, it's not anymore necessary in JavaScript. So, should you do it? Yes or no? It depends on yourself. And this will be the bottom. But although I do like it here, it just looks a bit more nicer. And then next here we have left, bottom, and then we have here the top. Sorry, that was the one as well. Getting distracted. And what I do like to make sure that these are just say top, bottom, and then we say left and right. So right we need to calculate. Right will be interesting because it has a formula in here. And in this here we can just remove all. We don't need that. So how do we get the right side? Alright. For the right side we need to look at two items. We need to look here very carefully at the maximum width. And the maximum width here would be this. It's still the very end here in this case, which makes sense. If I click on this, you can see here, this is the end of the chart. So in this case, or the canvas. So this very squares, all these squares exactly to the very end. To calculate the width here, well, we don't have to even calculate. It's basically this one here. How will you calculate this? If you need to calculate, you can just calculate the max width minus height. Sorry, not minus height, sorry, minus left. This should give us the value, am I correct? Because you can see here, the number is not equal to 700. So if I move it a little bit, maybe it becomes 700. Am I correct? Alright, so 700, that's an easier calculation. Then if I refresh this, let's do that. Alright. So you see, we do need to refresh. And later on, I'm going to show you something, because that will be a tricky part as well. Here we are. The max width would be then we need to calculate from this point all up to here. So we basically could do the width minus left. But if you can see here, max width has already deducted it for us, meaning that we don't have to deduct it. So we know the max width of the entire label. So we can grab this one, but the max width is not right. What I mean by that is the, I guess, the position right. So how do we calculate then the max width? Or how do we calculate max width? We're going to, with all these ticks here, or these tick labels, we need to then do the max width divided by the amount of tick labels here. So how do we do that? So if we scroll down here, you will see here ticks. You can see here length equals 7. So you probably know here, this is an array. So we say array length 7. So all we do here is we say this, divide by, we can copy this. Then we say here, what is the value? It is called ticks. So we say ticks dot length. Length will grab the value of 7, as you can see here, and then it will divide whatever the value is here, which is about 700, divide by this. So that would mean 100 pixels in width for every single item here, depending on the size, of course, of our chart. So if our chart size changes, then it will be recalculated again. So if we save this now, we should have now all of these positioning items. So now we have this here, and we can do here, if you want to do here console log, what we can do here just to show you, let's say right, what will be the right value. Then if I save here and refresh, there we are, it's about 96 plus plus, which is correct because it's 27 here, so divide by whatever. This is 700 minus 27, then there's something like, not, it's just below 100. Alright, so this is all correct now. So we have all of this here, and now what I'm going to do here is what we need to do is create an array. And this is very important because we need to work with an item, and then I want to just combine this all together to make it a bit more organized. So we're going to say here the following. I'm going to say a constant. And then we say here scales left, alright? And this will be just our array. And basically this will consist of all these 7 values here, because we are going to work with an entire formula. This is very important. Because right now, if you would do it, it will work, but this will only work now without any calculation. Because what happened if we move from here to here? We need to do basically right multiplied by 2. Or, am I correct 2? Well, no. We need to do multiply by 1, and this one should be multiplied by 2, etc., etc. And we need to make sure we have a left calculation in here as well. So, we have some work to do. And to make it simple, we're going to make this a formula so that every item will be considered. Because here you have to pay attention. Because this part will become, this is probably the most complicated part of it. And this is why chartjs, when they have all the built-in features, it saves you a lot of time and effort. Because you don't have to calculate that. So what we want to do here is the following. Well, I'm going to show you this later on. What I want to do then is just create if let's do a for loop here. If we do a for loop, and we will do this, what we had to do here is to calculate them. So we say here let I equals 0, because this is my point what I'm trying to indicate here. And then later on, that's why we need to make a item. And what we're going to do here is the following. We're going to say here, what are we needing is the my chart. I guess here the my chart scales dot x dot ticks. And then in here we say dot length. And the reason why we want to grab this, we want to loop through it how many times? Well, 7 times because of the length here. So that's the first one. And then we say here I++. And then in here, basically we're going to do an if statement. The if statement must analyze if x equals within certain values here. So I'm going to show you this one here. And so let's do this one first. Then we say here the following. We say here if, pay attention here, this is a very tricky part. So if the x value, is the x coordinates here, would be larger than the larger than the starting point of x. Yes, or sorry, not larger than the starting point of x, but larger than the top or no left side here. This is the one. And then it must be smaller, and sorry, x must be smaller than right. We have this here. I guess we can even use this here. We have the left and smaller than right. But the right here will be eventually plus right, and the right will be left plus right. So let me explain here why. If we calculate this here, remember this is 100 pixels. So we need to move first here, and then we say 100 pixels above here. Very important, because if you don't do that, it will start here immediately, and then you have like this here. Of course, the left here will prevent that, but then you would have like a chipped version of, or a clipped version of the label here. Very important to understand this one. All right. And then we need to make sure that the y value would be equal to, or sorry, is larger than. This is the easiest one. It's the top, because the top is always consistent. Top. And the y value must be smaller than bottom, which makes sense. So once we have this, in that case, we would say here, we're going to say here, ctx.style.cursor. And then we say cursor will be equal to pointer. If I save this now and refresh, you can see here this works. And then I realize that I need to undo this one. Let me undo it, because you will see here else. If that's not the case, I want to get this one here. And I'll say pointer will be default. So if I save this now, right now here it doesn't happen anything. Here it works, and here it doesn't work. All right, so you can see here. So you might say, well, all right, what we need to do now is basically this, and then here, just do a multiplier. So I'm going to show you this. Then here we say, let's read this, and then we say plus I multiply by right. And the reason why we do that is because we need to move here, here, here. So we have this one here. And then so we have that. And if I'm not mistaken, the left will be this, but the left must be also multiplied. And what we need to do with the left is basically the following. We will say here as well, how much will be multiplied? Multiplied by left plus I multiplied by right. Alright, this is very important. Why? Because first one here will be clickable, and then after we need to move the left side, will be now not anymore this square only, but this square plus whatever was here first. So then we go here, start here. Alright, so if I save this now, refresh, we have this here, and basically now it doesn't work here nicely. We can organize this one, but we can do also the following here. So I'm going to show you a simple trick here just to do this one. We can do here break. And the reason why we do this, if the condition is true, break it immediately. And this is the reason why, because if we don't break it, it will loop through every one of them, and that's why we have only this trigger here. So I don't want that. I want to break it. I don't want to loop anymore, because it will loop through all of them. So once we found the answer, stop looping, and that's it. So let's look at it. You see here, and there, and there, and there, and there, and will always work here. So this is very, very important. What we can do here as well, if you are questioning if this is really correct, I can understand that. We can do here a console log, and just say here the I. Save this. Refresh. There we are. We get the I, and then here one. Well, let's remove here whatever the console log is here. Save that. So here we have, and there we are. So it recognizes now all the different ones. If you want to organize this a little bit more, because this honestly is quite a mess, what we can do is here, because this is basically what we're doing. We're getting all these coordinates, and all these coordinates are here basically done. Although, do you need to do this? Not really, but if you want to organize it, we can loop through all of this. We get first all of these details here, we push it in an array, and from there on, we can clean it up. And that's why I was planning to do that, but I realized that basically we don't have to do it, but let's organize it a little bit more. So that's a slightly more advanced item, but also a very good practice that you should maybe consider. So in here, what I basically want to do is the following. I want to create now an array where we get the left, or basically the tick location of all of these items per label, or per tick label here. So we have all of this. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to create here a for loop. And in this for loop, we're going to grab here, I guess this one, you can see here, we can just, I'll copy this, and then we're going to say here will be the following. We say skills left dot push. So what we're going to do is we loop through this, we want to push this formula value in here every single time. What are we pushing? Well, basically the values that we have here. Once we did this, we need to do another one for the right. And the reason why we do this one for those two is because those two are the most unique items here. they have different values while the top and bottom is always consistent. So what we're going to do here is this will be the right, and the right will be not this. Let's remove that, but we're going to grab this one is I plus right plus I multiplied by right. So then we have this. So once we did this, what we can do now is just another, this is a good exercise to be honest. So we say here, we're going to create a new item where we say the scales coordinates, and the scales coordinates will be equal to, I'm just going to get this, I'm going to do a dot map array method. And the reason we're going to use map array is we're going to loop through this because now we have 7 items in here with the coordinates. And if you want to see it, well, let's do console log. Show you this here, so you have an understanding. The more clear it becomes, the better, I believe, or at least that's what I sincerely believe. So you can see here, all of these are all left. These are all the coordinates we have just copied. And then what we can do here is the following. We can grab all of these here, and what we're going to do here now, of course, the map. So in here, what I'm going to say is the following. Let's put in here another parenthesis, and then we say here left. So what I will say here, the scale value in here, which is all of these array values, every one of them I will call from now on left, which makes sense here. And I will say comma index. So we also get the index value that's matching with that. Doing that, then we can loop through this, and then I'll say here, I'm going to create here an object. So we say here, let scale object. This can be any word, doesn't matter here what you say. But what I want to do is I want to put it in parentheses, and then later on I'm going to show you exactly why. So once we have these parentheses, what we're going to do then is we're going to put them, because now they're all individually, we're going to put them all together in one item. You will see it will be very nicely organized. So then what we'll say here is, here, in here I want to add a new item, which will be the top. And the top will be equal to, well, let's see here, the value of top, basically. So we say here, that this, or the top, so it's not even that one, it's basically this one. Since these are always consistent, doesn't matter here. So then I will say here another one, subject will be bottom, because they are always same value. So that's why we don't need to do anything special here, because they will just loop the same value consistently. Then what I want to do here is I will say scale object dot left will be equal to left, and left here is not this one, no, it is now this one here, and this reference is going to scale left here. Remember that. This is just understanding of arrays and objects in arrays that we're playing around with. Very important what you're doing here, by the way. Alright, so then another one will be the scale object dot right, and the dot right will be, we will say here is scale right. We're going to grab this array, and then we get the index number that's directly matching with the left, which we grab here. Copy this, put in here, and once we did that, semicolon here, and then we say here return the scale object. So we're going to basically push this in these coordinates, and then you will see here then the coordinates here will be extremely nicely organized. Let me say a console log. Please save that here, and if I hover over, you can see here we get now everything, and there you are. First tick, that's this one. Second tick grabs this one. Third tick, as you can see here, everything is now nicely and neatly organized. So now what we can do basically here, instead of having all these formulas here, which can create a mistake, we're going to say here, this will be now equal to the following. Alright, so what we're going to do here is, let's see what we need to do here is the scales. Alright, we're going to grab this. We say the x equals not anymore left. We say here dot. And this we do, of course, we have to iterate it, and then dot. This will be left. And then the other one should be this, no more anymore, this complicated formula, right. Then the other one, the y value will be this equals top, and the final one, this equals bottom. So here the I is basically a loop here, it will iterate in here nicely. So now we have this here, and then eventually we'll break, we have to break there if we get the answer. So now we save this in here. Let's try again. There we are. We get this. And if we want to even do here, what we could do here is even grab here the specific coordinates. Now, move over here. Oh, I see we also have a loop here. Why do we have the loop? of the item. I guess we will loop through all of these. Doesn't matter. I thought we had this done, or did I have? Oh, sorry, this is the one. Remove this console log here. Save that. If I'm here, it goes in here, but it has many items here. I guess here we'll go in here, and there we are. So all of these will eventually show. You can see here nicely. Everybody did nice. So what I want to do now, final one, is this. This is the final item. Because what happened now if we do this? Let's go here. The width. The width is here. Now let's make this 80%. Save that. Refresh. So now we have this here. But if we would change this to, well, we can do it even bigger. Does it work? Oh, apparently it does work. I didn't expect it to be working. But apparently it works nicely. So if I even move this, here it works as well. So sometimes it might not work. And for that, we want to make sure that if we resize it, because basically these coordinates are based on everything here, but it doesn't update, or it doesn't update if we change the coordinates. To avoid any mistakes, what we're going to do here is we're going to say mychart.resize. And if it resizes, so every time we do something here and it resizes, every time on Onhover and we resize it, maybe you have a different, it loads first and then someone does a mobile view version or whatever, or reduce the tab. In that case, we will protect this as well. So basically with that, it will always move on, and you can see here now, it works nicely. So this is basically how you can create a Onhover effect, or basically not even Onhover, this is a more mouse over effect, or mouse move effect that will create a Onhover cursor. So of course, if you want to make it clickable, I have this specific video that you should watch as well, because those two are really paired together.